Hello guys, my name is Anna and I vlog daily from Ukraine since the start of the brutal Russian invasion. And I'm extremely grateful to people who demonstrate their support to my country, their continued support. And I'm extremely glad to meet on my channel Artur Rehi, who is an Estonian soldier, but also a strong voice of Ukraine and a great volunteer. Artur, welcome to the channel and I'm really happy to know you and to speak with you today.
Hi, glad to be here.
Well, I know that you have lots of subscribers and we share the majority of subscribers, but if you're new to Artur, please subscribe because he does a lot of interesting videos and most importantly, a lot of really good job to support Ukrainian armed forces. And my first question is a bit boring, but very traditional. I typically ask people, did they feel this war coming? Because in the media, it was a lot of information about Putin getting ready to attack. We had a lot of comments, people saying, why didn't you prepare well? But still, for me personally, it was difficult to believe in such irrational war. You are Estonian, and Estonian people know well what Russia is. So taking into account your military experience, your Estonian experience, did you feel it coming? A full-scale invasion, full-scale war.
I personally didn't, in a way that I didn't see anything happening in Estonia. I guess we're part of NATO, we're part of the European Union. We're also used to having Russian forces on our border all the time. Nothing changed here, but there's another aspect that from January 2022, Joe Biden was really yelling out to the world that CIA has satellite imagery of Russian forces gathering on the border. And I still have videos uploaded from January stating when will Russia invade. So for some reason, I don't know why, I didn't doubt the United States intelligence that Russia will invade. So in that case, yes, I was ready for it. I wasn't prepared for it, but I was expecting it. But for the fact that did I see something happening in Estonia? No. And other people in Estonia, they were not waiting for it. Only for the fact that I was following CIA's intelligence reports, I was expecting it.
You are very careful at following all the updates from Ukrainian battlefields and global information like CIA reports, various intelligence services reports. So observing a Russian war in Ukraine for 20 months, how did it change? Have you noticed any changes in the character of this war, something that might be useful for Ukrainians to understand and for people around the world? And more wars and conflicts appearing, right? That's a very worrisome tendency. So what do you think on that?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind after also making today's video is at some level, the Russians have gotten better at fighting, because when the war started, they supposedly the second army in the world, they were so horrible, so bad. We remember this doom convoy going to Kiev. There was almost 100,000 troops in that convoy, and it was useless. It was militarily so stupid. They still do stuff like that. For example, on Avdiivka, we see these convoys going, still using this tactic, which doesn't work and is obsolete. But then again, there are other instances where the Russians are using tactics that surprise me, actually, and also surprise Ukrainians. So at some instances, they have learned, but at other instances, not so much. What has changed for me personally, though, is when the war started. I'm from a peaceful country in European Union, first world. I started watching these videos daily from day one, and day and night, first weeks, I remember reacting to videos of Russian soldiers getting killed from drone, grenades, RPGs, bullets, artillery, everything. And it really got to me. I got depressed and I was really broken inside. I can honestly say right now that I've gotten used to it. And I guess some strong mental defenses have been built up in me. So I don't get so vulnerable about that stuff anymore. But at the beginning, days or weeks, I remember I couldn't even sleep. It was so bad. From first world peaceful country immediately to watching death all day and all night. Yeah, but now I'm used to it, luckily.
Well, then, having sacrificed some of your health, mental health, and like feeling normal, and observing Russian army, perhaps you've developed like a portrait of that army or of a typical Russian army soldier. How would you describe them as a professional military man?
First of all, I want to say I'm not a professional military man. I was only a conscript, but as a conscript, you do learn a lot
Yeah.
because you are trained in Estonia like a
In
native
comparison
fellow.
to me, you're super professional.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, a Russian military man, again, if I say this, people all the time, oh, he has such a bad opinion of Russia. But no, this doesn't come of my prejudice against Russia. This is honestly, if you analyze, then Russia is a top-down heavy system, meaning that orders are to be fulfilled, no questioning. In NATO doctrine, for example, a soldier can think a little bit more with his head. He has battleground awareness, and he can take decisions according to what's going on where. A Russian soldier cannot do that at all. So that means the Russian soldier is more zombified, more following orders blindly, more perfect for these meat assaults, biomass assaults. A NATO doctrine army could not use these assaults at all because the soldiers would mutiny, like immediately, actually. But Russians don't. Their army units rarely mutiny. That means their soldiers are accepting this, accepting these commanders, accepting these orders. In my eyes, they're a little bit sheepish. They don't think much.
I wouldn't say a little bit, because it
Yeah.
is actually very tragic when you count the numbers of Russian soldiers who died here, and they are not cared for. And I know that many Ukrainian armed forces, people in Ukrainian armed forces, are surprised to see how badly they are equipped, especially in case with medicines that they might need or blood stopping things and so on. So they are ready to sacrifice as many as needed, not caring about the numbers at all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, as a Ukrainian, I get often asked about the success of Ukrainian counteroffensive. Some see a lot of Ukrainian achievements. Others say we are too slow. Then I have this answer that we're still waiting for F-16. How would you qualify Ukrainian counteroffensive, or maybe something that you would like to focus on? Up to you.
If we determine the success based on ground liberated, then in that case, the counteroffensive has failed. If we determine the success based on Russian offensive capabilities destroyed, meaning Russian troops destroyed, tanks destroyed, planes shot down, then the counteroffensive is a success. So it depends what was the goal. So I think at the beginning, the goal was to liberate land, and the Ukrainian command structure immediately understood that this doesn't work because Russian defenses are high, and they changed the tactic. They started hunting logistics, artillery, they started grinding down Russian convoys and not trying to liberate new territories anymore with all costs, which is improvising, adapting, overcoming problems. I like it because they adapted. But yes, the people in the West and people in Ukraine sometimes might look at this and say, okay, you gave away your first goal, which was to liberate land immediately, and you took this second goal, which is to destroy the enemy first and then liberate the land, which is the right thing to do. But people might not understand the military strategy behind it, is that you cannot really liberate land if enemy has 10,000 tanks. You need to destroy the artillery first, and then you can move your infantry. So this is what the Ukrainian army is doing now. And in my eyes, they're doing it very successfully by saving their manpower and destroying and grinding down Russian armor. So in my eyes, it is not a failure, the counteroffensive. It's definitely not a success, but it's not a failure. They're just adapting to the situation like any NATO doctrine army should do. So we don't see the Russian army really adapting that much. So in my eyes, if an army can adapt and is flexible, it's a victory already. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because the context is changing and war is extremely dynamic. And I do feel that many forget about various elements like Russians who are ready to sacrifice hundreds and thousands of people, something that many people in normal countries will not be able to comprehend. And sometimes slow supply of something. Reading newspapers, you feel like Ukrainians already have that, but in reality, they are still waiting for that to change the game. You have a very interesting video, an important one about Estonian gas pipelines. And I think that almost every country of the world, to some extent, is influenced by special Russian military operations. Well, maybe not open, but like in their typical FSB style. So my next question is, do people in Estonia, in Baltic countries, by the way, I wanted to ask if it's okay to say like Baltic countries, if it's not the heritage from Soviet time, how should I name should I unite countries or not?
It's fine. I think it's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay, because I
I mean,
don't want to
Estonians
be
don't
like,
can.
sometimes we inherit these bad habits and we have to get rid of them. So people in Estonia, people in Latvia, Lithuania that are your close neighbors, do they feel the threat of potential Russian operations? They don't have to be openly military, but I mean different kinds of warfare that they practice, informational, I don't know, blowing up pipelines. What do they feel about that?
When war started, Estonian police was immediately very strict about every kind of war symbols. Every Soviet monument was destroyed, actually. Like, we had this whole campaign of removing the Soviet monuments, and the country, like, the governments do things slowly because they follow the law. They have to vote on it and all that stuff. So people couldn't wait. So people actually destroyed these monuments on their own, just like with hammers at night. Like, they couldn't wait to dismantle these Soviet monuments. Also, the Z symbol, the Russian war symbol, some Russian people in Estonia still want to show that, and immediately they are stopped by the police. And police is actually very polite. They're asking them to take it away. If they don't take it away, they're asking second time, and only third time they're gonna fine them. And even then, they're not gonna put them to jail. They're gonna, like, as appropriate to a democratic, peaceful country, like, the police is not immediately beating the people, but trying to, like, talk to them that you are in Estonia, we have our laws, we're supporting of Ukraine, we're a democratic nation, da da da. So seeing that, I really like it, actually, because it doesn't show that Estonian police is using this war to turn huge violence against Russians here. We're still doing things by the law, but we're very strongly pro-Ukraine, pro-European Union, pro-NATO. And the people, I think, if they see it, see us being more civilized, Estonian people also see the government being civilized and not afraid, not reacting with fear and aggression immediately. I like this, actually. I don't support, like, fully going and beating somebody or throwing them out. Dialogue first, and then. So if
Yeah.
you're asking if people are afraid, I would say no, because we're in NATO, we're in the EU. Russia doesn't have troops near our border because Pihkva Saintniks, they're all gone, they're all grinded up in Ukraine. I don't think people are afraid.
Yeah, we are like preparing Russia for some positive changes, possibly even inside Russia by killing all of their like potential police FSB agents and other stuff. Yeah, thank you. Actually, this is very important not to be afraid. Like, I feel that Ukrainians are not afraid. Many ask me this question, but no. And once again, thank you for like stressing the importance of remaining kind, like normal, humane, not turning into orcs. Many were afraid that Ukrainians will be like super aggressive, but we see a totally different picture, and even the way Ukrainians treat prisoners of war from Russian side sometimes much better than they are treated inside of their brigades. But I personally feel a lot of informational operations of Russia propaganda. And you know, this was a very famous phrase like Russia has the second strongest army in the world. Now it is the second strongest army in Ukraine. But I have to agree that they have really strong informational army, if it's possible to say so, and they very well know how to address each country, what conflicts to trigger. And do you find any traces of Russian propaganda in Estonian media, among people, or I don't know, in conversations?
I think it was more before the war because when war started, Russian channels were immediately banned all over Estonia. Russian, we had some pro-Russian people in the politics. They were immediately arrested actually because the defense police had evidence against them, so they were arrested, not put to jail, but like in court, and there's investigations going on. So honestly, right now, as an Estonian, I live in the capital. I don't. A lot of people speak Russian here. Like third of the capital speaks Russian. But they're pro-yes. I feel more that they're pro-Estonian Russians. The Estonian language is incredibly difficult, so they haven't learned it. But they don't like they're not pro-Putin. I haven't felt that at least. We have those people also, unfortunately, but I personally haven't seen any strong Russian propaganda influence in Estonia after the war. Before the war, it was really strong, yeah. But after the war, I think Estonian police has kind of got rid of all of these people. Like they have sent a lot of people out of the country, and now it's yeah. I don't see it really.
Okay, this is good. Sometimes I've read an interesting thought that maybe, like when Putin started this war, he actually lost all the cunning opportunities to keep many countries inside this Russian periphery who was still sympathetic to the language, culture, music, like people were more neutral or positive than now. I know that since the start of Russian war in Ukraine, you've visited Ukraine numerous times, and you're a great supporter. There are lots of things, beautiful, important things that you brought to Ukrainian armed forces. And my next question is, have you been to Ukraine before the war? And also, what are your impressions from these trips, from talking to Ukrainian people, Ukrainian soldiers, seeing war with your own eyes?
First question was if I'm going to visit Ukraine after the war. Yes, I mean I would love to go to Ukraine by flying 5 hours. Right now I have to drive 30 hours by car, so I would love to go flying 5 hours. I'm in Kiev, boom, beautiful. I fly
Yeah.
to I'm in Odessa, whoa, wonderful. I would love to do that, but now I have to drive, and going back is 30 hours by train. Also, it's quite bad. So definitely, I'm going to visit because I really like it. But visiting now during the war, it is weird because it's my first impression of Ukraine, and I immediately fell in love with the city. Honestly, I really like the vibe, and from Estonia, but Estonians are like really usually slow and not that temperamental. I'm like boom, 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 shoo, shoo. I'm very in a way Slavic temperament. So I go to Kiev. It's my temperament immediately. It's my style of people. I feel if I talk to guys, I talk with my hands. I talk really fast. I see that nobody's looking at me weird. Yeah, I really like it. Also very cheap, like that also. Like the music, like the language. So Kiev, as of now, it is my favorite city actually, and I want to go as much as I can. But it's like such a long trip, so I can't really go that much. I've been 4 times this year, and I'm going fifth time in November actually, visiting again, giving kamikaze drones actually to special forces units, donating. And usually my convoy stays for 5 days, and I'm staying for a week because I want to stay like 2 more days. I always take a bit longer to visit like Biana Vishnia and the Все Свои, the clothing store, and buying like Ukrainian made clothes. This is a Ukrainian shirt, and I have like a lot of Ukrainian clothes because they don't make them like that in the EU. I don't know, it's different. They have different styles there, and I really like it.
Oh, thank you so much. By the way, you're always invited to Lutsk if you drive by, because we are on the way from the EU to Kiev. And once again, also thank you for stressing these things that details of your life change greatly, even if you live far away from the front lines, but not being able to get on a plane, and like many people ask, why don't you fly from Kyiv? Well, guys, yeah, or other stuff like I wish. And once again, I like repeating this phrase both to my subscribers and now personally to you. I hope the day when it is safe to travel to Ukraine comes soon, and you will be able to see a different, like more relaxed and more happy country with tasty food, nice people, and good clothes. Okay. And what are your impressions of Ukrainian soldiers? Do you have any like people that you are in contact with? Because I know that you supply them with many useful things, but also communication is important.
Well, I've had good and bad interactions with Ukrainian soldiers. I'm not going to name the units because I don't
Okay.
want any drama. But I have both. Most of them are good. So most of the soldiers who come to the meetings where we give them trucks or night visions, they are making jokes and smiling, and then they tell stories how they lost their friends like a week ago. So all of these soldiers go through death regularly, and then still I see they have mechanisms mentally, psychologically to cope with them, like humor. I see that they don't like drink, like they're not alcoholics like in the Russian army. So I'm glad to see that it's very hard, but these soldiers can cope and they can still be friendly and human and make jokes and talk to me as a normal person. So most of the interactions are very positive. So yeah, it has been like very interesting talking to them. Also very eye opening. Like me coming from Estonia, a very safe country actually, very safe. And going there and hearing these stories, looking them in the eye, you kind of feel what they feel. If you're not a psychopath, then you feel empathy, you feel what they feel, and it's pretty horrible. But for me, it's like there's no choice, because if Ukraine falls, Estonia will fall. So for me, there's no difference if a Ukrainian is fighting or an Estonian is fighting, because we are in the same pot immediately by being next to Russia.
You're right. And actually, armed forces, just like any other sphere of life, is a reflection of the society. And I believe that like problems and plazas of Ukraine are seen in our soldiers, and misery and tragedy of Russia is seen in their Russian soldiers.
Yeah.
One question that I don't like asking, but I will, and we will finish with the next one, which will be more positive. But this is war fatigue. Many talk about that. Many problems happening in different corners of the world. People need to react. People get tired. You pretty well know how difficult it is to process all of this information. But at the same time, you have just stated it beautifully that if Ukraine falls, Estonia and other countries are in danger. There are many of them. And I think actually global peace, global democracy is in danger. I had an interview with Operator Starsky, and he said a phrase that I often quote, like, at war, if you're tired, you're dead. And that's what many Ukrainians take as a slogan for these days. Do you feel that fatigue in people around you? Do you think it's an issue? And if it is, what can be done to revive the support?
I think war fatigue in the West is luxury, because if you're in Ukraine, living in Ukraine or in Estonia, you cannot feel war fatigue because you will be dead, because you cannot ignore this war. In Germany, you can feel like, oh, I don't want to really watch this war, and you switch the channel, you change the news site, you don't watch this war. Well, you don't have that option in the bordering countries like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine, even Finland. They know they had the winter war. So if anyone is feeling like this war is a burden to them and they are getting tired or depressed watching this war or following what's happening on it, then, well, these people have the right to feel that, but they should also know that they have the ability to feel that luxury, because Ukrainians are dying. Ukrainians are the border for them to feel war fatigue in the safe space. Yeah, there's no war fatigue for Estonians or Ukrainians, so it's only in the West.
You're right, and I hope we will remain united because, once again, as a Ukrainian, I did not believe it coming. My normalcy bias, my experience proved it's irrational, it's illogical. Well, it's irrational, it's illogical, but it's happening because Putin and Russia are so brainwashed and so like evil, honestly, evil. Some people refuse to believe that such evil and hatred exists, but it's real, unfortunately.
Again,
Okay,
they have the
and
luxury of like being in a Western country and justifying Putin by saying, okay, this evil doesn't exist. There must be a reason why he does these things. And they have this luxury of being there safely and thinking that. But if they would be present close to the front or seeing this stuff, they wouldn't think that way. So I think all of these opinions, these explaining opinions or justifying Russians, they're all in the safe West because they're not possible in Ukraine or Estonia. So
those who saw the real face of Russia know what it is.
yeah,
And there is also one argument that bothers me. I've heard it during one interviews we do for a documentary on Russian propaganda, and that was a question about Kakhovka Dam explosion. That is a real example of violence and brutality and ecocide and like all of that together. And there was still lots of headlines saying potentially it was Russia, but what we have to analyze, and Ukrainians were like felt really bad because first of all you have this real tragedy and still you have people who doubt, and one of the answers that I got was that maybe when people encounter such biblical evil, like pure evil, and there is nothing you can do to it, you cannot detect a soldier on a video camera, for example, arrest him, send him to the Hague, but when there is nothing you can do, people choose to close their eyes and to pretend like, oh, nothing is happening because I can do nothing. That's sad.
yeah, it's a choice. I mean, if if Russia blows up the Novakhovka nuclear power plant next, these people, like the same way, will doubt. Okay, maybe it was the Ukrainians. They are doubters. They are, in my eyes, anti-West, anti-democracy. It's quite simple in my eyes on that. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We have to be more like, I'm sorry, but that's the moment when we have to choose sides, when we cannot remain like
Yes.
neutral.
Yeah, I mean, I always talk on my channel, and from the first day, I remember talking about Russians having collective responsibility because they are responsible. Russia is supposedly a democratic nation; they are responsible for their leaders, and they don't do anything. Therefore, they're responsible for the actions of the leaders. Therefore, responsible for this war. I remember at the beginning months of war, people gave a lot of bad comments like, "Oh, it's Putin's war." No, I still say it. It's Russians' war. It's all of Russia and Russian mindset and Russian world, Ruski Mir, and people are some people in the West, they want to be pacifist or neutral, and in my comments they also say, okay, why do you cover this war and with a smiling face, or and why are you? I'm anti-war. I'm not pro-Ukraine. I'm not pro-Russia. I'm a pacifist. And to that I always say, being pacifist, apolitical, anti-war is being pro-Russia because that's their propaganda narrative in the West. That's their goal in the West, for people being apolitical like they are in Russia. And people don't know this, and they're sheep, and they're like, oh, I am apolitical. I am on the peace side because I don't want war, and they don't know that they're playing right into Putin's hands.
If the country is run by a dictator, it is not only a dictator to blame. And Russians are famous for nurturing dictators every like 40, 30 years. So perhaps there is
Oh yeah.
something wrong with the mechanism inside the population. I don't want to say society. Thank you, Artur. And I want our last question to be positive. And I think it's extremely important to visualize things that you want. I feel a little bit worried that this global support does not have this like strict measurements, like what do we want to achieve, what is our destination. So my question would be, how do you see this real victory in this war? What should happen so that we may relax and say, yes, we've won and now it is peace? Because once again, every normal Ukrainian won't like you wishing him, her peace. We always say peace after victory. So first victory and then peace. So what is that victory that will lead us to real peace?
I think the best way for victory over Russia is definitely not to invade Russia or bombard Russia. The best
We
way
don't
right
need that.
now, yeah, the best way is to win over Russia in Ukraine. So Ukraine would beat Russia on the battlefield and liberate all of the territories. Russian losing in Ukraine would mean, I think, Russian civil war, because somebody has to be responsible. Putin is now behind this invasion, and if he fails in Ukraine, some other power, the hardliners or the liberals, well, they will rise up, something will happen, but Russia needs to be stopped in Ukraine, not in Russia. Because if you cannot really stop them in Russia, because then they immediately have an incentive to mobilize the entire society for protection of the motherland. You know, they love that stuff. So they need to be stopped while they are the aggressor. That's, and I think right now is the perfect opportunity, and we all need to work on this together. But this is more a message to like Western European countries and United States, because Eastern European countries know this all the time.
Yeah, very beautifully said. That's what I often repeat on my channel, that perhaps at this moment we should concentrate not on helping Ukraine, but on stopping and punishing Russia. If we stop the evil, we don't need any help anymore. We will like continue living like you may help if
Yeah,
you want, but we will not desperate for survival. If we stop this evil, we solve lots of problems. We cover lots of dark holes that now take away our energy, money, and all of that.
yeah, exactly. I agree.
Thank you so much, Artur. Thank you, first of all, for all that you do. You could have chosen this luxury of living your normal Estonian life, but you have joined the informational army, and it's indeed a battlefield, not to let people relax and forget. And I am super grateful, same as thousands and hundreds of thousands of your subscribers, for all that you do. Subscribe to our channels because this war is important, and I hope that together we will celebrate Ukrainian victory one day soon. And thank you once again. Glory to Ukraine.
Heroям slava. Thank you for having me.